Bienvenidos a un capítulo más de Diálogos Sensoriales. En esta ocasión seguimos en la parte virtual. Nos vamos a ir al norte de Estados Unidos, en particular a Minnesota. Voy a platicar con Natalie Stoer, quien conocí recientemente bueno, no tan reciente, hace un año, en Brasil, en una conferencia. Y bueno, vamos a platicar un poquito más con ella. Natalie, thank you so much and welcome to Diálogos Sensoriales, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm sure people will enjoy this chapter.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Perfect. So let's start with the classic question. Why sensory? Or if there is something you can share us with when you first met sensory.
Yes. I go back a little bit in time, a little bit of a story. So when I was a little girl, my mother was always, I loved eating bananas. So I ate a banana every day. My mom always had them in the house. But when I would eat one, she would say to me, now put that banana peel in a plastic bag before you put it in the trash. This is before we had organics and composting, unfortunately. And she would just say, because I'm going to smell it all day and I don't want to take the trash out every day. And she was the same way with onions. And even if you cut up an onion and you put it in the fridge, you had to have it in 3 containers, and contained. So she was very sensitive to, smells and lots of things. And then as I was growing up, I realized I was as well. When the people would boil shrimp, I'd go hide in another room. I couldn't stand the smell of shrimp or other things like that. So I was always curious about this. And at the same time, I would love smelling things, flowers, whatever. I just, would love experiencing the world. But, of course, I didn't know there was sensory science. So as I went to school, I found food science, luckily, because I was interested in foods and nutrition. And as I was in food science, I remember one day I was in my food engineering class, and my 2 friends, Gina and Nancy, said, hey, we're going to the dairy products judging practice. Why don't you come with us? And Gina and Nancy, they were really fun and cool. And I was like, okay. So I followed them to the lab. And there was this very stern, strict teacher, this professor we had for our analytical food chemistry, Dr. Bradley. And, he was getting samples ready. And they said, I brought Natalie along. We're going to bring her just for today's tasting. So he, it was a new victim for him. So he got excited and he got me this big tube of butter out of a big block, and he gave it to me and said, taste this. So I tasted it and I said, it tastes like metal. And his eyes lit up. He got so excited and he said, you're on the team. And so that's when I discovered that there was such a discipline where you had vocabulary and there was a rating scale and that people were doing this. And so that was my entry into thinking about it. And I didn't instantly study it because there was no undergraduate program. Right. But when I got to graduate school, I quickly transferred into sensory science once I found a professor that was doing that.
Who was that professor?
Dr. Harry Lawless.
Okay, nice.
And he was wonderful because he really inspired me because he had both the research experience from working at Natick food laboratories, and he studied with some very esteemed psychophysics professors. And then he'd had practical experience too, working in industry. So he was a wonderful professor to learn from. And I believe I was his 3rd graduate student ever. So he was a very, very new professor too.
Nice. So do you remember the product the first product you evaluated with sensory or consumer?
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably when so then I still meandered a little bit. I went into product development first after I got my graduate degree in sensory. And then after doing that for 2 years, I did go into sensory, for the rest of my career. But when I was a product developer, I worked with Lori Rothman, who you probably know, and she was the sensory manager. And so she would come into my little office and I was working at a candy factory. What's better than that? And I remember I was making these hard candies in different flavors, and she and I would sit there and just describe them, and she'd be like, this isn't really pineapple, this is this. So that was my first time again of, making a product and then evaluating it.
Wow, that must be a very nice experience because Lori mentioned that in her interview. So that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it was a very interesting fun time because
Right.
there was only a few of us and we got to do everything.
Right. And what is the, let's say, I don't know what to say the worst, but the difficult part of at that time, I mean, of doing sensory.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean early in my career? What was
Yes, yes.
difficult? Yeah. I mean, I think it wasn't as probably as part of the business team back then.
Mm-hmm.
So at least in my early positions that I had, you had to work hard. You know, the business team would come and say, I need this. And it would always be, but why? And tell me more. And so it felt a little bit more like people were requesting. And that was both probably partly because I was inexperienced, but partly it was also still developing its credibility and its place in the business world as being a real, real applicable science that could help you learn deeper about the product, not just, are these two things different?
Right. Wow. So it's at the beginning it's kind of difficult. So that's why it's important to have resilience, and for instance, it's or develop that that skill.
Yes. And mentors.
Okay.
One of my early experiences when I actually had the seat at the table, being the person on the business team, and the business team was coming and asking me, I was working on a line of tomato soups, 4 different ones, and we had to develop them. And the marketing person asked me for, what are you going to do? Tell me the test you're going to do to help us figure this out.
Yes.
And I told him, I said, I'm going to do this, this, and that. And then the next meeting, he asked again. And then again, and then again, and he kept asking me. And I went to my boss and I said, why don't they get it? I keep telling them what I'm going to do. And so she set me up with this marketing manager as a mentor. And I went to him, his name was Raj. And I said, Raj, I don't understand why I've told the marketing manager on my tomato soup team how many times I've told him that I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to approach it. And he said, Natalie, it's because you need to put together a timeline and you need to say, I'm going to do test 1, test 2, test 3, and put dates and when the results will be available. You can change, he said, the tests that happen in between, but he needs to know because he's being accountable from the very beginning to the time that product gets launched. And he needs to feel comfortable and tell his manager he's going to meet milestones. And the minute I put it in a timeline, I was, they didn't ask me again for, another month, it was like, oh, now I'm happy, but I just didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So probably, well, because when we graduate ourselves of whatever career, and you start working with other people, you need then to start communicating with other people. And there's something that must be like I don't know, maybe translation or something that can translate both languages. So I guess in that part is sensory science, correct? So that's a strong bridge, I guess.
Yes, very much so, right. And when you can learn how someone else needs to receive the information you're providing, then it's a huge unlock to that, communication. And the best business team members understand also, how to get the best out of their sensory partners. So when you have that perfect combination where both parties are trying hard to communicate and understand, that's when it's beautiful.
Okay, nice. And can you share more about your career in a general way? I mean, in which activities or companies or what are you doing now, if possible?
Yeah. So I began in my first, professional job was in product development, and that was at a company at the time called Brock's. It's now part of a bigger candy company. Still, it has moved around a lot, but it is back in Chicago where I worked. From there, I went to Mars, and that was when it was based in New Jersey. So I went to New Jersey and worked at the headquarters, and that was in sensory. So I was asked to come there, and I was a descriptive panel leader, which was wonderful because there's nothing, more grounding, I think, than learning how to use sensory right there where you have your subjects, your people, and you have you have to, again, work on the creating the environment and helping create the stimulus and all that. So that was a wonderful, I worked there about 4 years, and I also got to start doing consumer research while I was there. So that was wonderful. That's where I started to work with business teams and understand more about how to apply it. From there, I went to what was at the time the Pillsbury Company, which General Mills bought 2 years later. But I went to Pillsbury in Minneapolis and worked in sensory, and then was managing the descriptive panel program. And when General Mills bought Pillsbury, I got, to lead more programs, which was wonderful. All the analytical sensory and working on different business teams. And so over my career at General Mills, it just kept growing. I became a manager of several teams, then developed the global department, became also the leader of different experimentation and innovation methods. So doing sensory and some, kind of very new in context, different ways of learning in grocery stores and with consumers and in real time. So it was a wonderful, I worked there 25 years and I never stopped growing. At the end of my career, I was leading some huge enterprise-wide programs that were, beyond sensory, but I was still in my sensory role. So that was very exciting. And I retired 2 years ago. And since then, I've been just very happy giving talks, giving lectures or talks and collaborating, wherever opportunity presents itself with others in the field.
Super. No, interesting. And I can guess, but what's the best part? What's the best part? Speaking about your whole story of doing sensory.
Yeah. Best part. There's so many good parts. I really enjoy the problem solving with both the business teams, but also with your own team. When there's something that's a challenging question, and you don't necessarily know how to approach it, but you have, again, a good background, a good foundation. How do you do that together and start just learn in the best way you can with a team to solve a tough problem? When the problem is kind of ambiguous and difficult, that can be challenging, but the reward is so big. I really have enjoyed that. Yeah.
So that's another must-have of a sensory scientist. You need to love challenges.
You do. To be good at it, I think, and to continue to progress, you can't be afraid, or you can be a little afraid, but you can't run away from a challenge. Yes.
Nice. Okay. About your career. Well, how do you, or did you, depending the time of when you face this, balance the need of innovation, but remember that everything must be innovated, but with maintaining the product quality and safety, especially in a market where you requires new products in a fast way? How can you handle that?
Yeah. I mean, it's the foundation about, the product still has to deliver on what the consumer is expecting, or if it's a brand new product, what you're intending to deliver, what is that consumer purpose it's fulfilling? So that is at the core. But with innovation, so you have to move quickly. Often you want to get there before someone else. Sometimes you have to get in the market and learn, and then be willing to quickly, change or pivot and, make some optimization to the product. So I think you need to get it, I don't know what the right percent is, maybe 70% right. So that, again, because that first trial is so important, and someone won't buy it again if it's not good enough, but maybe there's some things you can correct a little better later. If the package doesn't open perfectly and you get that feedback, okay, let's quickly fix that. But if the, product performs, if it's a decent tasting product, if it's so unique that, someone will come back to it because of that, then maybe you can refine some things and find ways to get that consumer feedback, have that as part of your plan. Like, don't just launch and hope people will complain or find it or give you positive feedback. You have to go and figure out how you're going to get that feedback in a purposeful way right after, if you're launching something that hasn't quite been optimized.
Right. And speaking about optimization, how easy is to communicate nowadays with people from other departments? It's quite easy. It depends on the company. Is there a rule about how to approach to new people who doesn't know sensory?
I say you have to be and this can be frustrating sometimes. I would see it in some of my team members, but you have to be willing to, over and over and over, help new people understand what you do and the value it provides. So just accept that as part of your role, being an educator, an ambassador of sensory science. Maybe you have that quick presentation or that quick kind of one-page poster or whatever it might be, flyer, to say, hey, this is what we do. This is what we're about. Here's some examples of how we drive impact. Here's how we can partner together. Here's some ways we can really work well. And so it's both that education piece. And then I also say, don't take a shortcut in building the relationship. So spend some time getting to know your partners. Find some personal common ground. It doesn't have to be too personal, but I mean, just something, maybe it's something even about, work that you've enjoyed, that, you can say, we both like to get this cup of coffee, that's, in the cafeteria or whatever it is. So find a common ground and build that, because that credibility, that trust is so important. Sooner or later, you might have bad news to share, and you want to, or tell someone maybe their product isn't as good as they thought it would be. And if you have that foundation to build from, and that credibility and trust, it's a lot easier.
Right. So patient and friendly person is another skill.
Yeah, approachable.
Wow. Yeah. Yes.
Encourage them to ask questions. Hopefully when they ask questions, then you can understand how well they do or don't understand sensory science.
And how to face something that didn't result as we expected. Like let's say, okay, we thought that we will not find difference, but there's difference. I mean, bad news. How to handle that is nobody wants to hear didn't work.
Yes. So I'd say two things there. One, I'm a big fan of the sandwich method. Do you know that? So you say something positive, you give the hard news, and you say something positive. So, and in that, I would just say the positive thing is, yes, you've learned it, right? You got to learn this now. If we didn't learn this, this would have been a disaster. Right. And the second positive is, what are you going to do about it? So have a plan, have a recommendation, so that people don't feel stuck. At least get them to that like, what's that next step we can take to move forward, so they don't, they have a little bit of some stimulus to kind of work with.
Right. Yeah. It's important to do that. Not to be like nervous or scary of, okay, this wasn't the result they expected. So, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. And speaking about leadership, how do you know your employees or colleagues are prepared for promotion? Is there something we can see in the way of working with other people?
Yeah. Well, it definitely depends on, what the role is, that they're looking to be promoted, whether it's more of a, business facing or technical role, what I'd be looking for. But, I think, setting clear objectives, knowing that they're reaching them, and it's not just, it's what you see, but also what people around them see. I think sometimes I would start to get very positive feedback. They're seeing that development in themselves, and you're seeing it in them. So that could be in the level of impact they're driving. It could be in how they're being consulted in a different way than they were before. That's the part where someone says, I'm consulting with them, as if they're, at this level. They're just performing in a way that I really have come to see them work differently with my team.
Right. Good. Interesting to hear that. Okay, let's change a little bit the dynamic, and I will start asking questions about the things you prefer.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Tetrad testing or triangle test?
Tetrad.
Hot dish or chicken soup?
I'll say hot dish. I am vegetarian, so hot dish gives me more room to be creative.
Okay. City or forest?
Okay. Well, I am drawn to the city, I have to admit. So when I travel, I tend to try to soak up all the culture, the museums, the history, the food. However, when I do find myself in a forest, I am very happy. So I know I need to look for that more, not just be drawn to what I naturally always want to do.
Traditional descriptive analysis or rapid methods?
Yeah. I mean, they both have their place, but I love traditional because that was where I began my career. And I feel like there's no, if you're not a sensory scientist, no one else can do it.
Right.
And so it's really such a great diagnostic tool and just, it's a beautiful tool. So I really love the methodology.
Right. Apples or bananas?
Bananas. You heard my story earlier, and I have not grown sick of them.
Analytical or consumer testing?
Ooh, they both have their place. I think as I've gone through my career, I just consumer testing because it just is so fascinating to me. How you can learn and what consumers will tell you, and you just never know until you ask.
Right. Beer or root beer?
I hate beer because I am so bitter sensitive.
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh, so I must drop the red wine and white wine question then.
Yeah. I say originally it was red wine. There was a time in my life where if you didn't offer me red wine, I'd refuse. You know, it was only red wine. Only bring red wine to my house. Okay. However, I have two good friends that only drink white wine, and so being like we talked about, being open-minded and and receptive to other people's what they like, I've become more of a fan of white wine, and now I enjoy it, especially in summer. So I probably drink white wine more than red wine now. Nice. So it's evolved.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Thanks. Consulting or teaching?
Ooh. I think consulting, because you get to do some teaching and consulting, and it's nice always to be asked for your, experience and to be able to lend that in a way that you feel is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Parametric or non-parametric statistics?
Yeah, parametric.
Preference mapping or PLS?
Preference mapping.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Yes. That was fun.
Okay. Can you mention the big difference, or if there's any difference between the sensory on your early career and nowadays? Is there one?
I believe there is. Yeah. It was, so when I began, I feel like it was more narrow and focused more on the traditional methods, and also the forums to network and to exchange information were much more limited. So early in my career, there was the Institute of Food Technology conference, there was ASTM, and there really weren't a lot of other, maybe there was some more scientific societies, that you could go share at, but nothing that was sensory focused, that could be a forum. Well, since then, as you know, Pangborn has become a symposium. We have Eurosense, LATAM, Asia, Sense LATAM, Sense Asia, and then the Society of Sensory Professionals, which is actually an actual society, that helps you develop professionally as well as scientifically, and has conferences. So it's just been wonderful to have those sensory specific forums to not only hear about new research, but to be able to share and network. And I'd say the methodology also has grown in that, and the application of it. So it's not just food and personal care. It's become hotels, designing hotels. It's become the haptics of smartphones and other devices that you're touching and interacting with. It's the design of luxury, vehicles and clothing and all that. So it's been fun to see it evolve that way. And I'd say in the third thing that's changed is just the business environment. It's become so much more ambiguous and complex that how you apply it has also changed, or the challenges in working with it aren't as straightforward as they used to be.
Right. Wow. And what about the artificial intelligence? Is something we need to adopt, we must reject, or we embrace them?
Yeah. So I have a point of view on this for sure. I believe that you need to know enough to be able to help others in your organization, or if you're consulting, understand how artificial intelligence can and cannot work with what you do, or help and aid sensory science. And that's going to keep evolving, and you need to keep up with that. Otherwise, others will tell you or ask you or have beliefs. And people believe, artificial intelligence, that we can do away, let's say, with descriptive panels. not yet. And so, but you need to have a point of view on that, and you need to be able to understand that. So you need to know enough to articulate your point of view.
Right.
And that is either, and also you need to probably have some experts that you can consult and talk to about this, or some sources, you know, whether that's, you know, subscribing to regular podcasts or YouTube channels or books or, you know, journals, but you need to stay up on it and be able to know enough. You may not be the coder, you may not be, you know, using, but you're going to start using AI if you're not already in some aspects of your job.
Correct. Like statistics.
Play with it. Yeah,
of course.
Yes, right. And just start playing with it. There's no harm, right? Learn firsthand. So not only, you know, what you think you can or can't do.
Right. What do you think will be the next step for sensory science? Because as you mentioned, at the early days of sensory, it was sensory, but now it's sensory science consumer. And what's next for the sensory? If there is any future, or must be like the same, I don't know. In your opinion, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's so much opportunity for sensory science to continue to influence all the aspects of product design. I know there's been, you know, lots of books written on sensory marketing and pieces like that, but I do really believe that we can have even more congruency in the product, you know, the way the sensory profile or signature comes across in not just the actual use of the product, but in the, you know, the packaging, the advertising, the way the social media is used, all that can become more of a complete package, and, you know, using sensory in a way that's more just, again, like I said, congruent. But I also believe, you know, you talked about AI, that there will be ways that we can start using it to do our jobs faster, better, so that we're spending more time really guiding the recommendation, really working with the business teams and understanding, you know, that product in a different way than having to do as much data analysis or as much of the actual, you know, pulling of research data. We can assemble that in a different way to move faster. Do that first experiment first for us, maybe.
Yeah, understood. There is more and more students who wants to work in the sensory field, I guess. So for that young people interested in the sensory career, what advice will you give them in order to stand above in the field?
Yeah. Well, early in your career, ask questions, right? There's never a better time than when you're brand new to ask questions. And, you know, I talked a little bit about how I benefited from a marketing mentor earlier. I would encourage them to find a mentor in business, or to take some kind of, maybe it's even a short course to understand more of how sensory is applied in the business world. Do some cross-functional teamwork, even if it's at college. Can you work on a cross-functional project with, you know, a couple of different disciplines, you know, to really learn? I believe that as you go up in your career, things do get more ambiguous. You get asked harder questions, and the more you can draw from other disciplines and creatively solve them, that will help you. And the more your network has grown and you have different angles to come at problems with, you can, again, just be a lot more innovative and show your science, but also how you apply it in a way that's differential from your peers.
Right, and deal with frustration sometimes, right? Because
always work on your resilience. I know one thing. I just do say that. Take your vacation. You know, don't save it. Have a little balance if you can, and every day. Don't wait. You know, don't say in 2 years I'll do that. Build that into. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Right, because sensory always expense. It's expensive. You need glasses. You need labels. You need software, you need whatever, and sometimes the company says, hey, you're the expenses of my company, so it's not clear the benefit of sensory, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, let's say we have a time machine, and we can travel back in the time where you were with Nancy and Gina, as you said, dealing with in your studies. And you had the opportunity to speak something about sensory with Natalie, your Natalie. What would you say to her?
Yeah. I would say, I would say things that you are critical of in yourself that you may see as imperfections. might be assets or strengths later on. So don't always, listen or be so self-critical, or when you get some constructive feedback, think about it. So one example is, let's say you think differently. Mm-hmm. And every time you say something, maybe someone rolls their eyes or they dismiss it. But later, right, as you develop that and you learn how to maybe say those creative things in a way that people hear them, that may mean you're going to be really great at innovation, or that thinking differently could really be valued in the right context. So find a way to use that as an asset, versus, seeing it as something you shouldn't, you need to get rid of or stop using.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that, sometimes that, people, you have to quiet your self-critical voice a little bit and see it objectively.
Right. Yes. The passion is sometimes difficult to keep back. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Just following question. Did you have the opportunity to speak to your mom? Remember when you dropped the bags with the banana peel inside? I work now with sensory, and I am like an expert. So that was my first training. Do you have that chance to speak with her?
I haven't told her that, I don't think, directly. Although we joke about it. We still joke about, having to have bananas in the house every day. But I probably need to tell her how influential that was.
Yeah, that's
to me, yes. Or maybe now as I look back, I realize I've inherited a lot of that curiosity, passion, or even like what I don't want to smell, or understanding that people sometimes, have strong preferences.
Right. It's the impact of the small things during our childhood. So that's, wow.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Is there any research, publication, book that you like to suggest for people who is doing sensory?
Yes, I was gonna say, I'm a big fan of the sensory evaluation techniques by Seville and Carr, because it has, I think, everything, all the basics and really good practical advice for when you're, you can either read it, and I read it as part of my education, but also you can go back when you're actually doing an experiment and say, okay, help me understand again how to do this one, or might there be something I could learn from how I approach this descriptive problem, or whatever it might be. So that book is excellent. I also really like the book that came out 2 years ago, Digital Sensory Science. I think it's Digital Sensory Science Applications in Product Development, I believe it's called. And that is great for, as we talked about, people thinking about how is sensory going to evolve in this digital world? Where are people experimenting? How is AI being used? How is virtual reality being used? How are smart speakers being used? All those things. So it's a nice overview to just see, what's happening, and hopefully there'll be a new edition because that's moving rapidly.
Right. Yes. And what about the symposiums? Is that important to attend it to a symposium?
I highly encourage it. Yes. Sometimes it's hard to, get your employer to pay for it, or university, but I would say then make sure you're presenting something. If you can even present a poster, it gives you good reason to ask to attend. And I will be at the Pangborn Symposium in August, so I know I'll see you there, and many others. It's just such a wonderful I found sensory science is such a welcoming and wonderful field. If you work in a small company or you're new starting out, going to one of those conferences can make you just instantly build a community and not feel so unique or alone in whatever environment you're working on. So please go to learn, go to make friends, go to network.
Even if you are shy, because it's, as you mentioned, people is like friendly. So if you are like standalone, somebody will approach you and tell you, what are you doing here? No? Something like that.
Exactly. Or go up with purpose, I always say, go up to a poster. If that poster looks interesting to you, that author will probably start talking to you, or ask a technical question, and you'll instantly have, a topic that you can engage on.
Right. Natalie, I truly appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. We can see your passion for sensory, and I hope I know people will enjoy this chapter. So, is there something you want to add into this conversation?
Not at this time. I think you were great at asking me some pretty challenging and very detailed questions. So I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you, and see you at Pangborn, probably with a white wine glass.
Exactly. And I'll be on a panel on Monday evening. So
perfect. So I'll be there then. Okay.
Yeah, a business case for sensory. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And well, see you and thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank you.
A ustedes muchas gracias por vernos. Si les gustó, denle like. Si no, simplemente no digan nada. Nos vemos en la siguiente edición de Diálogos Sensoriales. Chao, chao. Bye, bye.